All right. My heart is breathing heavy. As you can tell from this title, this video is pretty deep for me. Kind of nervous. My heart is racing right now because for the end of the year, normally people make videos that are inspiring, happy, reflective of the year, and this is hopefully gonna inspire some people, and it is gonna be a reflection not only of this past year but of my life. It's not gonna be happy though. It's gonna be emotional for me. I can already feel it because when I was writing out my bullet points, I started tearing up because this is something that's super personal to me. So I guess I'll just jump into it. To end out the year, I really wanted to air out my dirty laundry, let go of my traumas, and be able to just leave them in the past and move forward. This past year has been the most personal development and growth that I've ever had in any given year of my life. And now it is time for me to let go of what haunts me from my past. I think this year I've done a good job to learn how to let these things go, but I just wanted to let them out one last time, and hopefully some people will be able to relate. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is because I wanted to shed some light on how our society, especially on social media, deals with mental health issues. You know, we did a good job at making them normalized. We definitely have normalized mental health issues, but I think something that we're missing is how to overcome these issues. I see a lot of people on TikTok talking about how depressed they are, but it's never anything about how they're solving these issues. It's almost become popular to just have the issues and not ever solve them. And that shouldn't be normalized. We shouldn't normalize mental health issues. We should normalize mental health, how to heal the issues. So that's another reason why I wanted to talk about this, because I have ways that I cope with my traumas and the issues that I've faced. And hopefully some of the things that I've gone through, maybe you can relate to and you can learn from how I've coped with them. I just wanted to shed a light on how to overcome hard times in your life, hard periods in your life, and move forward from them. This whole video started when I was in the car listening to a podcast, and the hosts were talking about their mental health issues and really being hard on themselves. They were talking about how much they hated themselves and kind of laughing about it. And this type of behavior is, I think, a little bit toxic, especially to younger people who look up to these podcast hosts and these YouTubers and TikTokers and think, oh, okay, it's normal to hate yourself. Like, that's fine. And they go home and look in the mirror and hate themselves as well and think that that's normal, and it's okay to just sit in that and soak in being sad. And it's not okay. It's not okay to hate yourself. You deserve to be loved from yourself. After listening to this podcast, I was in the car and I just opened my voice memos and recorded my thoughts. So I'll leave that here for you.
We're not normalizing mental health. We're normalizing mental health issues, which isn't healthy at all. And no one's talking about how, yeah, it is normal to have these times, but we also need to solve these issues. We need to grow. We need to learn from them. We need to get better. And I feel like that's the part that is missing. You have to get help and make it better. We need to be talking about how to solve these issues, not just the fact that we have them.
Okay, so now is the time, the hard part. I am going to share my traumas with you guys. I'm already tearing up. I don't know why. I've learned so much from my traumas, and I'm honestly grateful that I've had them, because I learned so much that I never would have without them. But it is hard to reflect on them sometimes, and it's definitely hard to share them. Some of these things I haven't shared with anyone. I'm just gonna be super vulnerable right now, and I hope you guys appreciate it, because I'm already kind of dreading this. Okay, so I want you guys to know that I'm not talking about mental health issues because I think everything's fine and I'm perfectly happy and like, you're crazy for having mental health issues. No, I face these things as well, and that's why I do want to share all of mine and just put them out there. So let's do this. To start, I'm going to go back into my childhood and then work my way up until now. To start, I was a wild child. I had a lot of energy. I had just a happiness for life. I was happy. I was a really happy child, and people kind of made fun of me for it, to be honest. Like, I was just too overly excited, too happy, and people thought I was weird because of it. And so I tried to tone it down a notch, and then I moved on to high school. And I bring up that because high school is where I was able to let that energy out again, and I was really welcomed into like the party scene, and that's where you're allowed to be wild and crazy because you're drunk. And so I got into that. Parents really couldn't control me. My dad didn't really want to control me. He also faced his issues with drugs and alcohol. And so I also witnessed that growing up, having him face his demons. So watching that progress throughout the years was something that I didn't realize was going to haunt me or affect me, but it did later on, and I'll get to that. Elementary school through high school was easy for me because I didn't notice what was going on around me yet. I didn't really know what my dad was going through until I was in high school, and even then I didn't know the extent of it up until I was in college. High school isn't really where my trauma started, but I just wanted to mention that that was my life before moving to LA. Moving to LA, I instantly got a job, was trying to work on myself. I was in school, and I realized quickly that LA was extremely expensive, and I had to figure out how to live. I worked 3 jobs. I was so stressed out. I had hives covering my entire body because I was so sad, so stressed, working from 6 a.m. till midnight, going to school full time. It was exhausting. And I went to FITM, where a lot of girls have a lot of money, and if they don't have money, they find it, which leads me into one of my traumas that I'm kind of ashamed of, that has bled into a lot of the rest of my years and has kind of just stuck in the back of my head, but I'm finally going to let it out. I'm going to say it. At FITM, there's a lot of girls that are sugar babies. It's super normal, especially in LA. It's so normal. I was introduced to that world by my friend and his roommate. It was a girl and a guy, and they both just always had new bags, always had everything. They had a cute apartment, just the 2 of them, and I always wondered, how do you guys do this? Because one of them didn't go to school anymore and was just kind of traveling and had all these nice things. And my friend, he showed me the website where you can find sugar daddies and stuff like that. And so I went on, I logged in, and I was only 19 years old and was introduced to this world, and I met a few different people. They were all pretty young, honestly, in their 20s, late 20s kind of. I was 19 at the time. And they just would show you this glamorous life and give you money, and I am kind of ashamed of it. I don't know why, because when I look back at it, I didn't do a lot of what all these crazy people were doing, but I'm hard on myself for this because that's not something that I'm proud of. So it caused me a lot of pain and trauma throughout the rest of my time in LA because I thought of these rich men in a certain way, and I thought of myself in a certain way. I really haven't talked about this part of my life with a lot of people. I've told my best friend and a couple other people. I'm really hard on myself about this. It only lasted a few short months until I got a corporate job and was able to support myself better than working 3 jobs and trying to do that. So that's something that's kind of haunted me for a while. I'm glad to let it out. I really am. And I've accepted that part of my life. And I know that those were choices that I made and I could have prevented. But at the time, when you're so desperate and at such a low, and people around you are doing it, you think that it's okay. LA is a scary place for a 19-year-old, to be honest. I'm glad I went through that time in my life, though, because I've learned from it. I've learned from the experiences I've had from that, and I accept people better because of it. I think experiences teach you about different types of people, and this experience has taught me a lot about people when they're at their low. Right after that, another traumatic event happened. So like I said, I was working corporate. I just graduated college at this point, and my dad told my sister that he was dying and that he wanted to be close to his daughters because my sister didn't live close to him. I lived in LA. I asked my dad if he wanted to move in with me, and he came to LA, moved in with me, and it was amazing for the first few months. Really weird things started happening. And again, I haven't really shared this, and I don't want my dad to come across as a bad person because he was a really good person with demons and an addiction. So I'm going to share it, but I just wanted to say that he's a great person. So then during this time, my dad moved in and really weird things started happening. He would be gone super late at night. There was a time where he told me he would be back in like an hour, wasn't back for a few hours, and I started worrying, and I drove around looking for him, and I found him with a man, like, with no arm, no leg, in a park, pitch black, high off something, I just didn't know what at the time. I picked him up and brought him back home, and I had no idea what he was on. I thought that the guy drugged him. Turns out he drugged himself. I didn't know that at the time, and after a few months passed, again, I just started noticing these weird things. He would be sitting on a chair and like dozing off. He would just pause in the middle of his sentences, and I had no idea what was going on. Until one day, one of my really close friends that I worked with, she opened up with me and shared that her brother died of heroin. And so I started questioning a little bit more what my dad was doing. And one day I came home earlier than I told him I'd be home. And I found him high off something again. And so I went into the kitchen, which I normally didn't do because it had a door on it and I worked all day. And so when I got home, he already had food for me. Like, I just never needed to go in the kitchen. And so I go in the kitchen and I see a spoon that's burnt with like this weird fuzzy stuff, like that's gray and fuzzy. I had no idea. So I took a picture of it and I sent it to my friend Rachel and I said, "Is this heroin?" And she said, "Yeah." And the next day, I tried to take him to rehabs, but of course, they charge so much. So there's like kind of no way to help someone if they don't have money. So I told him I couldn't live with him anymore, and he moved back home and promised he'd get clean. I'm going to move on from my dad. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. A couple years passed, and I started growing a lump on my neck. I was so scared. So another kind of big event in my life, I started growing this lump, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I ended up getting it removed, and it was benign. I think that's what they call it, where it's not like cancerous or anything. There's nothing harmful in it. It was just kind of like this growth. So luckily, it wasn't anything that could have caused me any harm, but it was just scary at the time. And right after this, the next huge event happened in my life. I came home from a work trip in Orlando, and I was watching an Adam Sandler movie, and the sun was shining in my room, and it was kind of just this beautiful, magical, like, sun that was just shining in. And I got a call from my sister, and I ignored it because I had just gotten off the plane. I was just so tired. I just wanted to watch this movie. And then Sana, my girlfriend at the time, got a call from my sister, and she said, "She's calling me now. I think you should answer." So I answered it, and my sister said my dad was dead. So that happened, and there was drugs and alcohol in his system. It's hard to say what exactly happened because my sister and my stepmom think that he was trying to get clean at the time. I don't really know. I always thought if he didn't leave, maybe I could have helped him. But there's nothing you can do when something like that happens. My dad was my best friend, and that was something that led me into a spiral of sadness. I was sad for, it's been 3 years. I was sad for like 2 years. And I'm still sad about it. Obviously, I'm crying about it. But I started spiraling, and I broke up with my girlfriend. I was unhappy with everything. I still to this day have, this is a weird thing. I don't know if this has happened to normal people. I don't really know, but for some reason, I can't have sex. I don't know how to have sex anymore. Because at the time, it would, anything I did, I had my dad in my head the whole time. So whenever I would try, I'd be like, my dad's in my head. I can't even, I know that sounds really weird, but he would always be in my head. I would just always be thinking of him. So I wasn't even able to become intimate. And so that became a huge problem with me and my ex. And then we broke up, and I almost immediately started dating someone else. And that person was 23 years older than me. Sex was a problem with that as well because I still couldn't do it. And I was just sad. And at the time, I didn't know how to deal with losing someone. I had never lost anyone before, let alone somebody I considered my best friend that I shared everything with. I told my dad everything. Getting into a relationship right after, it was so soon after that I'd broken up with my ex before and lost my dad. It wasn't a time for me to be in a relationship. And then that relationship escalated really quickly, and I got engaged. Things didn't work out. Obviously, I'm not engaged. And I broke off the engagement and moved back to NorCal, where I live now. This is where I grew up. And so I moved back to be close with my sister and my best friend. And I'm a little bit closer to my mom now, too. And so when I broke off my engagement, I ended up not being able to sleep. I had no motivation. I had no self-love. I was confused because at that point I felt alone. I had been, in one relationship for 2 years, lost my dad, and then was in another year and a half long relationship. And so I didn't know how to be alone. I couldn't sleep at night. I would stay up all night, and I wouldn't be able to sleep during the day either. I just had zero sleep. And I had no motivation to do anything. And so at that point I said, all right, I do need to get help. I need to figure out how to deal with this. So I went to a therapist and worked with him for a little bit. And then that's when I was diagnosed with adjustment disorder and situational depression. And so it is all situational. Adjustment disorder is when a bunch of big things happen in your life and you don't know how to deal with it, you don't know how to cope. And so I just didn't know how to deal with all the change that was going on that had happened within the last 3-4 years. I guess at that point it was 2 years, because it's been 3 years now. Yeah, the past 2 years. And so knowing what I was going through, having kind of this label, was helpful because I was able to read about it, read books, learn how to cope with what I was individually going through, and getting the help that I needed. I never thought I would go to a therapist. I remember when my parents got divorced, they tried to like force me and my sister to go to therapy, and both of us were like, we don't care. And so I always thought like that would never work for me, but it did. And at the time it helped me learn what I was going through. I didn't know what I was going through. I felt so alone because I had no idea what the hell was happening to me. But getting help forced me to figure out what I was going through and figure out how I could help myself. After that, I found relief and support in being close with my sister and my best friend and living, a mile away from them. I was learning how to deal with my traumas and my past and the things I had gone through. I finally felt relieved. And then, of course, another thing has to hit me in the face. I went out with a friend, what I thought was a friend, and ended up getting drugged and raped that night by, like I said, someone who I thought was my friend. And God damn. I just can't even... When I put all these things next to each other, I'm like, holy shit, how am I still here? And like, I just don't even know. When I think of them all together, it's very overwhelming. But anyways, okay. Yeah, so that happened by someone I thought was my friend, and I woke up the next morning extremely confused. I had never felt that way before. I just had an idea of what happened, but not really. I had been blacked out before by alcohol, and that night I didn't even drink barely anything, and so I was just confused how I felt so weird, because like I said, I drink, like I'm not new to it. I have been blacked out before, and I know the feeling of that, and then now I know the feeling of being drugged. They're different feelings, and so I went to the police and did a report and got the rape kit done, and they weren't able to press any charges because there was not really any proof. They did find DNA of the person on me, so I don't know how that wasn't proof enough, and it was like in me, if you know what I mean. So I don't know, I don't really know how that's not proof enough, but it is what it is, and I had to learn to deal with that too. And I again went to therapy and talked about it, and talked to my sister, talked to my best friend, and talking about things really, really does help. I know it looks like it doesn't because I'm talking about it right now and bawling my eyes out, but I swear it helps. That is what I thought was my last trauma. But then, it never ends. Then, last month, I was at my mom's house, and I woke up, and I looked in the mirror, and I lost my hair. I don't know why that one gets me. Like, that one just fucking gets me, because when I went to the doctors and got my blood drawn, they thought, maybe you're deficient in something, so got my blood drawn. Wasn't deficient in anything, I'm very healthy. So the only other thing it could have been is, I forget what name it is, but it's basically where a trauma of some sort from a year to a year and a half ago, aka the rape that happened a year ago, almost exactly when I lost my hair, could have caused you to lose some of your hair in chunks. So that happened, and pretty freaking upset about it. I woke up and just screamed because my hair is parted like where I normally part it, which is right there, right where it is. And I looked in the mirror and was just shocked. So, now, those were my big traumas in my life. That's kind of what I wanted to share and release and let go of and be able to move on from this year and going forward. This past year, even with the hair loss, I have grown so much from my traumas and been able to cope with them. Obviously, I still get emotional about them, obviously, but I've learned how to deal with them and learned how to learn from them, grow from them, and make different choices for my life, because I know a lot of these things I put forth because I put myself there, but I think you can't really control, even if you put yourself in certain situations, you can't really control what happens to you or how you're going to feel about it. It just happens. So I'm not saying what I've gone through is any worse than anyone else's traumas. I know we all go through a shit ton of stuff. And I think that all we can do is be there for each other. A lot of the times you have to forgive yourself. And I think that's something I learned this year is I forgive myself for mistakes I've made. And I forgive myself for being so hard on myself about those things. You also have to forgive others that have caused you trauma. Because if not, you will keep holding hate in your heart, and that's not a good way to move forward. I know everyone's going to have different ways of coping with their traumas, and it's not all going to be the same, but I wanted to share how I deal with it because hopefully it can help someone out there. I say this all the time. I tell all my friends and family all the time. They're probably so annoyed with hearing it, but let yourself be sad. Let yourself cry. Let yourself be mad. Let yourself feel whatever you feel in that moment. Just don't hold on to it. After you feel it, let it go. Obviously, it's going to come back every once in a while and you're going to cry and you're going to be sad again, but be sad and then let it go. I allow myself sad days. So if I wake up and I'm not in the mood and I feel sad, then I'm sad and I'm going to eat cookies all day and watch movies and cry. And then the next day, I'm going to tell myself, tomorrow, since you had your sad day, you're going to get up and you're going to go for a walk and you're going to get back into your routine, whatever it is. Another way that I like to cope is talking. I don't know, I love talking. I love letting things out. Obviously, I make YouTube videos. I don't know any YouTuber that doesn't like talking. But I think talking with your friends and family, talking with a therapist if that works for you, whatever it is, but talking, like, you can't just hold these things in your soul and bottle them up. I think that's the worst way to deal with things. I don't let my traumas control my life or how I view myself. I know I'm a good person. I know I make stupid choices sometimes. I know that I'm not perfect, but I don't let bad things that's happened to me or bad situations I put myself in control my life. I'm a good person. I am a good friend. I'm a good sister. I'm a good daughter. And I choose to continue to be that and to be a good person to myself. I choose to love myself even when I don't love myself. Even when I'm like, oh, I look in the mirror and think, ooh, girl. But deep down, I tell myself I do love myself and today's just an off day. And that's okay. At the end of this, it is okay to have mental health issues, but it's not okay to not get help or to not help yourself. And I just want that to be a reminder, like, it's okay to be a human. It's okay. I'm not saying don't go through shit. Don't be sad. I'm saying deal with it. Learn how to deal with it. Learn how to cope with it. Learn how to get help. And if you are going through shit and you want to talk about it, you can always leave a comment or send me an email. And then I'll also leave some links in the description box for different types of mental health issues that you might have or different traumas that you might be going through that you need help with, I'll leave some resources in the description box. I'm glad I'm going to leave this in my past now and move forward into the new year with a fresh palette, with a fresh plate. I don't know. And just feeling better than I did. Because this year, I swear, I've gone through so much shit my whole life. But this past year, I've learned to grow from it. I've learned to accept myself. I've learned to not be hard on myself. Just accept that life is going to throw these horrible situations at me. And every time I'm going to get stronger from them. And I won't let them control me. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear whatever you want to say in the comments, and I'll see you guys in this video right here.